commercial lines of insurance. But before we start our question and answer session, and we would like to know all your expert views. Let me introduce each one of our esteemed panelists. We have Mr. Devesh Srivastav, CMD and Chairman and Managing Director of GIC. We have Mr. Tapan Singhal, MD and CEO, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company. We have Mr. Ritesh Kumar, MD and CEO, HDFC Ergo General Insurance Company. We have Ms. Anamika Roy Rastewar, MD and CEO, IFCO Tokyo General Insurance Company. We have Mr. G. Srinivasan, Director, National Insurance Academy, Pune. And we have Mr. Sanjay Datta, Chief Underwriting, Reinsurance and Claims. Welcome to all of you. As you all are aware, Insurance Brokers Association of India is an association of all the brokers, which is mandated by IRDAI, where all the brokers have to become the members. And it is a forum where the brokers express their views, their concerns, and to the insurers, to the regulator, and take the industry towards its logical conclusion. You are aware in the insurance sector, brokers are a very important part of the entire value chain. Total brokers market share last year was nearly 24% of the entire insurance industry, and the addressable broker share has touched nearly 42%. What I mean by addressable is basically where the brokers are not participating, somewhere like the government health scheme or the agri market or the motor third party, where brokers are not involved much in the distribution. So if you remove those, then the brokers addressable market share nearly 42%. The broker's role is very important. They are one of the only entities which work for the client, for the benefit of the client. Brokers take a very significant and important role in risk management, in risk engineering, giving the right kind of suggestions to the client. Placement activities, placement of the risk. Brokers go to the market to get the best terms for the clients, terms by way of pricing, by way of policy, terms and conditions to get the best for the client. They are involved in various stages for the policy servicing. Brokers are actively involved in claims facilitation. And of course, at the time of the renewal, the same process is getting continued. IBI is also thankful to all the insurers who have wholeheartedly supported us in getting all these things executed on a regular basis. Brokers are also playing an important role, those who are on the reinsurance side, to place the risk in the Indian market or outside India for the treaty and facultative insurance and reinsurance placements. So with this very small introduction, I would like to start with the questions on the panel and to the panel. So my first question goes to Mr. Tapan Singhal. So Mr. Singhal, according to you, what would be the growth trajectory for the commercial lines of business?
So I think the answer lies in your panel only. It's in the hand of Mr. Devesh Srivastav one. No, so he's there with you. So my co-panelists know how will it go. Okay, but jokes apart, if you look at from the economic perspective, I think the infrastructure spend that the government would be doing, but that is how the economy has to come back now. You see a lot of money coming in the country, but right now the money is going into the stock market. It's not really going to the real investment. But that's the natural flow. After that, it will go into the real investment, and a lot of money has got pumped in. It will come into the commercial lines of businesses as we see it. It will come into infrastructure. So I'm personally very excited about it. I think next 3 to 5 years, there would be a healthy double-digit growth in the commercial lines of businesses, and that's good for us because insurers we are with the economy, and as it moves up, it does good for us. So I'm pretty excited about it, Doctor.
Well, thank you for the expert view, Mr. Ritesh. What is your view on this? Mr. Ritesh Kumar? I think he's facing some technical glitch. Ms. Anamika,
I think
what is your
business?
See, it again depends on Devesh how much he's going to increase the price and the treaty. And that will actually impact our growth. And thanks to, all the prices that went up in the treaty and all of our treaties which are led by GIC, we were able to register an extremely good growth in commercial lines. If you look even during this pandemic, We hope to continue growing this line, and I see no reason why it will not. One reason is government's emphasis on infrastructure development, as Tapan already pointed out, is huge. Secondly, if you look at, even if I call it, it is not real commercial lines, but entities have become very conscious buying liability and employees practice benefit policies because they have got scared with whatever happened. So these two lines will also grow. And the fourth reason I would give is that when people used to underinsure, they faced the brunt when losses had come in during the lockdowns, due to lack of maintenance.
Yeah.
And I think that's also going to be reviewed very meticulously with the help of brokers, with the help of our loss control engineers. And I am very positive about the growth of 21-22 in commercial lines.
No, excellent. Great. Mr. Ritesh, have you joined back? Mr. Srinivasan, sir, what is your view on this particular growth of commercial lines?
No, clearly there is a great potential for commercial lines to grow in this country. This year has been an exceptional year, but we are all expecting a quick recovery as far as India is concerned. And the government is also quite keen on making India as a manufacturing hub for the world. And also the Atmanirbhar, which the Prime Minister has been talking about, will also add to a lot of increase in projects. So property lines will certainly grow, not necessarily Devesh to create growth. I think even on its own, this line will definitely grow in the coming years. And I also agree with Anamika when she talks about the miscellaneous lines like cyber, liability, DNO. I think these are lines which are very big globally, but in India they are very, very, very big portfolios. I think they also will grow with increase in awareness, increase in governance. I'm sure that the commercial lines will see a double-digit growth for many years in this current decade.
That's very heartening to know. Mr. Ritesh, what is your view?
Yeah, hi. No, I think, see, if you look at it, the commercial lines has been a segment which has been very, very important from an insurance industry standpoint. I mean, there were times when the property premiums were 40% of the industry at the turn of the millennium. Over the years, obviously, I mean, on account of two impacts: A, the retail grew faster, and B, because of the de-tarification, we saw a set of things happening on the price front, which has partially corrected itself over the last couple of years. Having said that, I mean, that the fact remains that I didn't hear what the others said, but I did hear what Mr. Srinivasan said, and I concur with him that I do think that we will see growth rates of between 10 to 15% in commercial lines on a sustainable basis. And this has nothing to do with the rate corrections and stuff. But at a larger level, this is something that we would see. I also feel that some of the progress which seems to be done for instance, on the SME front. I mean, if on the SME, the new product wordings which have been suggested, wherein they have said that a set of things need to be included as part of the, STFI, and some of this needs to be part of the core bouquet. That itself should see a sort of increase in premiums. So 10 to 15% growth it's very, very difficult always to talk in terms of 1 year, but on a sustainable basis, sort of through the years is something which would be there. And we would see development of other lines of business. We are pretty bullish on cyber. The fact remains that if we were to just look at the trends as they are panning out in US or as they are panning out in the European continent, one does think cyber will be a significant line going forward. Of course, cyber comes with its own challenges, with its own risks, and we also need to be fully be cognizant of that.
My similar extension of the question to Mr. Devesh, who has been most sought about, mentioned by every panelist. Mr. Devesh, what is your view?
Dr. Saab, I would absolutely agree with all our brethren here, in the sense that the emphasis that is being laid on infrastructure development by the government is surely going to, see an increase in the commercial lines. And a lot of projects are also now in the pipeline. COVID may have delayed it, but it has certainly not stopped it. So with the COVID now abating and the vaccine right around the corner, and we are already experiencing it now, going ahead, definitely a healthy double-digit growth, as Mr. Singhal said, is something that we are looking at, and this is going to be on a sustainable basis as well. It's not going to be a one-year wonder. It's going to sustain itself, and that is where India is going to position itself as we take on a 5 trillion economy target and move forward. So I would absolutely agree with my panelists here on that.
Thank you. So, Mr. Sanjay, with so many claims around on the commercial line side, do you still see the growth trajectory being maintained like whatever the panelists said, or you have some other view?
No, absolutely not. I think I'm now bullish now that as an industry, and thanks to GIC's collaboration in the entire effect, that we have been able to manage the rate correction, which the research referred to in terms of de-tariffication. That's been a big plus. Over the years, we have been seeing a lot of exposure growth, versus premium growth. Here we're looking at the growth of I also foresee that there will be a huge I think this will be the take-up point for another level of exposure growth now that rate correction has caught up, with the exposure growth which has happened. I think the pandemic has, just the bullet just went by our ears, on terms of the damage to, non-VI damage, we didn't, entire industry didn't face at all. We were not even placed, even with these rate adequate things, we won't be able to take care of the non-damage VI with the pandemic, the stop, the interruption covers. But given that perspective, I think there is another element of the exposure growth which we need to take care of, which is the whole thing, the realization that there is an interconnectedness of risk. Supply chain coverage, supply chain, now coming into India, our ability to be able to look at all the risks which our panelists talk about cyber, they are all interconnected. And I see a lot of role for us as an industry to go out along with the risk managers, because I see a lot of corporates now becoming very, very risk conscious. They were not doing BCP on paper. They are now started really evaluating their risk and the insurance coverages. And now, it is important for us to now build in the coverages which are important, both in terms of length and breadth of the coverages. Of course, price correction will follow, because there will be claims if we give extra coverage. And now that we have learned how to be able to price up, at least on the risk-based adequacy of the price, it's a good handle for us to be able to now attempt the next leap. Maybe in baby steps in terms of increasing BI coverages, big more supply chain coverages, increasing coverages on the liability side, what others talked about. So this could be another big starting point, because I believe the corporates have now understood the whole impact of such a systemic risk, which can play across sectors. Actually, that's economic risk playing into insurance risk.
So that actually, these comments lead to my next question as to which are the products the industry, the general insurance industry or the broking industry should consider upon, so that we are able to get the organized growth and the profitable growth for all the stakeholders. So, Mr. Devesh, can we please have your view?
Yes, certainly, Dr. Saab. I mean, see, as reinsurers, we are always very happy to support the insurance companies in their ventures. Now, with the IRDA having come out with the sandbox, we are seeing a lot of traction there, and new products are being thought of and being taken out, which are possibly being very well received by the public as well. So there was a gap, which is which is being filled up now, and that's a very healthy development as we see it. Now, going forward, while the future will certainly be retail, because retail is where the real business lies and the awareness comes into play. Individually, people will start demanding more and more depending on the amount of risk mitigation measures they take, or how good or bad a driver may be for a motor car policy, or how healthy an individual may be, how much care would he be taking of his body. So as we progress, we will have much more individual policies coming into play, and that is going to be the future.
So on the retail side, which products do you see growing faster?
Cyber, as everyone mentioned, is the new flavor of the season, and people are looking at it. What we still don't have is a lot of penetration into the market for this. Individuals, like a householder's policy should have a cyber cover. Today, if something was to happen to this laptop from which we are talking, I really would be a headless chicken not knowing what to do. and looking around and seeing what can I do to get the whole thing back to its speed. So that is one. Secondly, health, as you've seen, has seen a lot of traction in the sense that, decades of advertisement couldn't do what one COVID did. And as is now evident, Bombay emerged as the health capital of the world because people here wanted that cover for themselves. So individually, people will start wanting to have a better standard of life. You see it in the West as well. That pet insurance is big business, something that's absolutely untouched here in India. So there are a lot of retail covers that are available. The corporates will also need a deeper dive into what the policy wordings currently are and what are the gaps that they perceive. Possibly because the rates were so low, because insurance was not really a cost for the CFO. It did not really matter. But now with the rates having been corrected, people are looking at insurance as something that is going to make a difference to them. They would as well look at a good cover as well that covers quite a lot of risks, and as they progress and review their risks every year, they get better and better coverages. So that is what the demand is going to be in the future.
Yeah. So, Mr. Ritesh, question to you. Which is a Sunrise product, and where do you bring in more innovation?
Also, before I sort of talk on that, I just wanted to sort of extend my thoughts on the previous question that you were asking. That what to my mind, is it that we all need to concentrate on, and it's not only a question that brokers need to concentrate on. To me, if you look at it, SME is a hugely underpenetrated market. The other thing that sort of we need to retail in any case, on retail commercial lines, insurance is practically non-existent. Homes are not insured, some of those. Amongst the larger risks, there is a very, very significant element of underinsurance that Devesh alluded to. And if you ask me, the next level of growth will come from these three things, sort of within the conventional lines of products. And of course, then amongst the others, whether we talk in terms of things like cyber, which was alluded to, whether we talk in terms of things like, say, event insurances, which are practically sort of, it's a very, very small niche segment, so sort of per se. But I think importantly, what we need to do is that, there are organizations which are going out buying very, very skeleton covers, thinking that they are insured. But it's not only in terms of the sum insurance or the sum insured, wherein there is underinsurance, but also in terms of the coverages. So I think that is one area that I think collectively as an insurance fraternity we need to work on.
Yeah. Anamika, what is your view?
You're mute. You're mute.
You're on mute, Anamika.
Yes. I think like others, I would share the same thoughts. See, growth will come from retail. Let us be frank. As we were preparing for some paper, and if you see, I can talk about my organization, not others. If I actually saw the number of policies I sold in retail and, taking a segment which I would like to be, my penetration is not even 1%. So therefore, retail health will continue. Now, what is the innovation? Now, you asked two questions. Where is the growth going to come from, and what is the innovation that the industry may witness? There are two sides. In commercial business also, we can innovate. It's not that we cannot. I think a little more flexibility is required. I think, our honorary chairman of GIC, Devesh, and IRDA would really have to think of layering some of these policies. Why people are underinsuring? Because you're charging a bottom-up rate right up to the level. How about layering certain losses and sharing the premium? That becomes a more innovation in Indian market today. When on IOCL and many of these tenders, they keep asking that ek ko lao, then hardly any innovation can happen in those kind of situations. So we got to segregate today a small fire risk from a large risk, and how the large loss limits can be applied, and what are the new ways in which we could provide good cover. That's for you, actually. I'm speaking on your behalf, doctor. A broker can actually tailor make a product, because I think it is time that we go out of this hackneyed quota share right from top to bottom. It costs the I would say it costs a bomb to the insurer in the insured, and then you know what they feel? They feel that, "Arey, loss to mera itna hi hona hai, loss limit itna hi hai." So there are two schools of thought. That one says, "Why should I miss out on the business?" The other one says that, "No, I need to be fairly, squarely covered." So this is one innovation I would think of. Liability, anyway, we are doing it. We have this layer. Oh, I am on the second layer. I am on the third layer. I need an umbrella. What about a property business like that? That's one side. Second side, I would think, is innovation in terms of even motor business. Like even in motor business, can I just say no sum insured policy? I replace a vehicle. I'm just talking about certain innovation under the sandbox. We have filed. We are yet to hear also. Sandbox, yes, is a very good thought process. We will have to wait and see the outcomes in the near future of what's coming out of that. Number two. Number three is today IRDA has standardized certain products, which is also a welcome move for those who don't want to break their heads. For a new company who is starting to be licensed now, it's very easy for them to just come in and plug and play and with the standard product. So I think the direction that we have taken as an industry is on the right direction. Having certain standardized product, giving an opportunity to innovate certain things, and the third one, as I would say, there is a constant analysis of risks that we are going through. I think all things through, if I look at it, come what may, retail will be the king. And so we will have, people who have certain, I would call it wholesale retail facilities will definitely do well even in the near future.
Very well said. Mr. Tapan, what is your view?
It's a bit different. The good part is if I look at Devesh Bhai clearly said right company have to push it through. But there's a retail करना है commercial line ठीक है जो भी है so he gave us a direction. And then we are talking of awareness in Corona for health. But let's look at some data to see does it work. We saw in the month of April the retail health growth was -3% for the industry. It started picking up June, July, August. It touched around 40 or so, but it had Corona products and the normal retail products. You have to break that too. September it peaked. November it's again at 15-16% for the industry. And if I look at now December, will actually be where we were before COVID in terms of the growth of the industry. So my question is, are we so if I look at for now so many years I've been in the industry, does it really work? This concept, and I heard a lot of people say this. The general insurance industry does not do good. So I asked them why. They say the product is complicated. I said okay. Second, we don't create awareness. I said okay. Then they said the process is all very cumbersome. I said okay. So let's look at Corona. Is awareness there? You're all aware. Can any one of us fall ill? Yes. A minimum cost, 2.5 lakh rupees. Right. Single or 2-click buy from any website of any insurance company. Underwriting, just some waiting period of 15 days. That's all. Yeah. Can the product be simpler? No. Can the awareness be higher than this? No. Can the buy be simpler? No. Underwriting? None. Price, less than 3 rupees a day. Let's look at our penetration of health in India. All insurance companies put together don't cover more than 10-12 crores of people. Government, one move covered 40 crores. One Prime Minister health, 40 crores below poverty line, one shot, they covered it. Yeah? All of us, all this year, 1986, correct me, Mr. Srinivasan, I'm wrong, 1986, the New India launched mediclaim, right? 1986.
Yeah.
1986 was the first time health insurance came into India. And I was part of New India then, 1986. I still remember it. We had that first cover. Now 2021, just 10-12 crores of people we have covered. I think let's look at the issue fundamental. What is it? Let's look at commercial lines of business. Brokers, like you said, 40% of business you're doing it. Can we put our hand on the heart and say that all the commercial lines that we insured are adequately insured and have the right coverage?
Yeah.
The only thing we're fighting is what low price, what coverages can we cut, what do we do? This is where we are as an industry. And I
Absolutely.
think we are trying to point at the wrong stuff. Awareness will get created, policies get sold. I don't think it's happening. Let's look at data. It doesn't point to the direction. A peak comes in for the time the crisis is there. As the crisis goes out, it comes down. Look at floods. Tamil Nadu floods, Uttarakhand floods. How much home insurance did we sell? The awareness peaks when the flood is there. 1 week, 11th day, you do a drip test. Your sale is pre-flood level. So are we really thinking right? That is, awareness is the issue, simplification the issue, or coming out of innovation is the issue. We have to get the basics right. We are not having right conversations with the customers. How many brokers, how many insurance companies, people have the right to tell the customer on the face, sir, we don't agree with you. This is the coverage you should be having. This is it. And we're not here to get the cheapest price in the market because the cost of insurance is hardly anything compared to the expenses that you have, for running your business. It's negligible. But we don't have that conversation. So a panel discussion where we have all senior colleagues, I think we have to get to the basics and get it right. Have the right conversation, be true to ourselves, at least get what is right first in the business that we are in. As intermediaries, as brokers, as insurance companies, and that is more important. Innovation comes in later. Now the other point is India the only case or is it worldwide? Now let's look at motor. When it was not mandatory in Indonesia, I think Mr. Srivastava, Mr. Srinivasan can tell this because they have exposure in the international market. In Indonesia, motor insurance penetration was just 10 to 12%. So mostly if you look at whatever is mandatory by government, that is where the penetration is high. In India, let's look at all the business we do in GI. How much business do we insure which is not does not have a bank loan? And that's why when Mr. Ritesh was mentioning about SMEs, why is it underpenetrated? There's no bank loan, there's no insurance. Bank loan leads commercial lines of businesses. Let's remove bank loans today and see how much drop will happen. If you look at automobile, if the government tomorrow says it's not mandatory to have automobile insurance, let's see what is the penetration insurance of automobile in India and how fast it drops. Home insurance, less than 1%, we're not able to push it. Amazing products. We don't have the right conversations. Our basics have to be corrected first. You really move on to looking at a lot of innovation and all. I think a lot of groundwork has to still be done as industry, as intermediaries, as brokers, as insurance companies, and get this right. Have the honest conversation with the customer. Have the courage to do that. Not look for shortcuts. I think that is my view.
So, extension of that question, Mr. Srinivasan, to you. Our IRDA has already made certain products standardized, and that will, I'm sure, help in selling more and more product. So, do you think that this will help in customer buying more and more products, and will this be one of the surprise products of the future?
Just continuing with, Tapan's, long, I could understand his feeling. As an insurer who has been in this field for so many years, it's a fact. Insurance penetration in India is not going to happen overnight. We will have to give it time. We will have to try our best. Like the Chennai floods, which you mentioned, we in New India at that time did, go to all those places because I am from that place. People forgot floods in 15 days' time. They said it will never happen. So that's the nature of, there is no insurance culture in our country. Maybe because of, trust deficit or whatever you may give. There are many reasons for it. But I think it's also a process of, people becoming richer. So it has also got to do with their standard of living. A lot of reasons are there. So I think we have to do our best, but it's going to take its time. It's not going to happen overnight.
So my next question to you, Sanjay, is, for the claims outgo, how do we bridge the gap in the large claims or reduce the turnaround time of claim settlement? And you being hands-on in settling the claims on a daily basis amongst this panel, so you would be probably the nearest to the claims. How do we ensure a timely settlement so that there are lesser disputes?
Of course, claims. I keep telling the underwriters in a company, cannot be, has to be, at start at the underwriting end. The underwriters can't put in, warranties and other kind of conditions which they expect the claims guy to handle and verify. Lot of information. The way the underwriting starts, we put every onus of everything to be checked by the claims guy. And that is a culture we must stop. Everything has to be sorted out of the underwriting end. whether the warranty is a warranty which can be, which the guy is going to live and breathe. What's the point of, checking, putting in a warranty which the claim guy will then use because he's conflicted. He has to agree to that warranty, or, if the warranty has been breached, can he pay the claim? The whole idea of the warranty is to make sure he takes certain, risk improvement or whatever measures he needs to take. And then you are expecting a claims guy to be able to, check that warranty, go out and check it, and then, be conflicted whether to pay or not. That's one part. The second part, let's take business interruption. Why is it such a contentious issue? Because there is no element, there are elements which could be, in a sense, I would, to the suggestion of standardization, I would welcome a lot of counsel or whatever, the industry or broker, in terms of educating the, persons or buying a complex cover like this. When there are no, dry runs being held on how to claim a BI. You go and sell a BI claim, the person doesn't know what he needs to produce at the time of claim. It's worse than retail persons. The complex, custom, innovative policies which sell to commercials, they have no clue how the claim situation will unfold. Mumbai floods, the first time I realized that, the lot of service companies, like BPOs and all that had taken BPO, BI, the computers were design engineers lost their work. How do I pay BI? There's no, nothing had been thought through. So one of the big thing, from a broking / is to do scenario stuff, on complex stuff. So when you will get the claims, that's very, very important. And otherwise, just not a matter of telling I need these 10 documents at the time of claims and finishing your claims conversation there. How will it play out? What kind of, will you be able to settle that document? Will you be able to give it? For example, take a situation where a particular research lab can't give you, the details of the stock which is there because of certain issues. But then you better know how will it be settled. Will I settle it by looking at your register? I can't produce a document. I need to look at your thing. All that conversation is to happen. So that to me is the the beginning point of the entire point, because again insurance is a complex product, and you wouldn't expect anyone leave alone you ask 10 people in our company, they may not be able to settle a large claim because they may be able to settle a retail claim but not a large claim. So how do you expect a customer where he frequent changes, he's just handling insurance as one part of his thing. You're able to understand the complexity of it. That's where brokers come in and we come in. We're able to educate them very well on this process and that's where trust will develop. Again, one of the elements I would add to what Tapan was saying, trust is also very, very important. So they get shortchanged on this, and after some time, they talk among themselves. Getting a BI claim is very, very complex. Why should I take that cover at all? So those kind of things are very important in the claims. The last part is I think the element of being gracious and magnanimous is very, very important, and the whole issue is that large claims or any big claim will have its issue. In spite of everything what I have said, there will be issues in that claim. To be able to, like the umpire, give the benefit of the doubt is very, very important. Our policies and are geared to I sometimes have threatened certain customers who didn't agree to things. Of every time they used to go, I'll go legal. I said, the best part of the thing is if I go legal, there is absolutely great. I put a reserve. My legal fees are shared between me and the reinsurer. You are on your net because you are paying legal fees. And I was 10 years. I earn interest for it. So what's the point of going legal? Let's go and settle. So that element of grace more on the insurer's side to be able to come to certain conclusions where we don't go into dispute at all. The idea is not to get into dispute. So round up that point, in Japan there are no surveyors because the trust between the insurer and the insured is so high that that's what Srinivas can bear me out. But that's what I heard. I asked some surveyors why don't have a branch there because they don't need it.
So my question to the insurers here is, overall the combined ratio of the industry is almost more than 100%. But still, that means the insurance companies are facing claims, they are paying claims, the brokers are servicing those claims, they have sold about the policy which they have sold. Why is there so much of trust deficit involved in the industry? Like what Sanjay said, there is a trust deficit. So how do we take care of this trust deficit?
If I could go first on this, I think the trust deficit is also about transparency.
Yeah.
See, at the end of the day, if the policy document is transparent, one, two, I think we also need to think in terms of the fact that how much time does it take us to actually issue a policy document on a corporate policy? First of all, for 60 days, I mean, you have the whole thing in terms of a guarantee. There is still data which is coming through. I mean, it's a 1-year contract. A claim can happen anytime. So I think, I mean, I can only, one thing which is very, very clear is that I think our documents and the due diligence which happens at the beginning is really something on which we need to sort of give a thought. I mean, I want to sort of describe it sort of anecdotally between the MBA approach versus the CA approach. Okay, I mean, and while CA has changed now, and my colleagues who are chartered accountants should not take it otherwise, but see, the MBA approach largely has been that you sort of take all, you do exercise all underwriting at the time of getting a person in for admission. So there have been tests, interviews, all those things. But by and large, I have not heard somebody who gets into an MBA then failing. Okay, because all sort of things have been built in at the time of entrance. In CA, at least at the time when I was sort of doing my studies, everybody could start their CA, but only an X percentage could sort of ultimately pass through. Yeah. Now, if we start saying that the underwriting would be done at the time of claims, and which is what Sanjay was sort of really alluding to, I mean, that is where the trust and the transparency will
that's a statement, I believe. Yeah, underwriting should not be done at the time of the claim.
And therefore, but then what is important is that everything that is required for underwriting is made available. And I mean, the onus here is on the insured, the onus here is on the intermediary, the onus here is on the insurance company, that all these three parties work together to ensure that A, all the data required is there, B, there is enough objectivity in the policy document. I mean, once this is there, then obviously it makes things easier, because I mean, and I think there are enough learnings that we have out of all the large claims. And I mean, I feel slightly inadequate to sort of comment on this because I mean, on the panel, we have people who are far more experienced than me on from an insurance industry perspective. But the fact remains that I think that is where we've been lacking. I mean, very, very frankly, in the banking industry, not that banks didn't have an issue, but the level of due diligence which is done to give a loan is far, far greater. There, somebody gives a 50 crore loan. Here, what is the due diligence that we do for sort of underwriting a risk of 5,000 crores or 500 crores? I mean, a paper comes, we just think of it as a 50,000 rupee risk because we are just looking at it as a premium. In a lot of cases, even a risk inspection is not done. You really don't know what you are insuring. And that is why when there is a claim, you start sort of hunting for all those documents, which you otherwise should have ordinarily taken sort of at the time of the risk inception.
Yeah. So Tapan, any further views on this?
Doctor, I think you involve me only for contrarian views. So let me give some contrarian views. First and foremost, insurance industry is a very funny industry. Honest people commit frauds with the insurance industry. I can prove it. Yeah. So the moment you have a claim, let's do the automobile. Let's have a simpler one. Let's not the complicated ones. So when you have scratches in the car, it's typically not a claim. It's maintenance. Yeah. And you already have all these activities floating around by all these garage owners saying you bring in your scratched car, take fully painted cars, bring in, and the bottom is DLRC insurance copy. An honest person who, if you talk to him, actually has high ethics and values, still will go and sign the document, that blank claim form, and submit to the dealer, and his car would get completely painted. I have said that, and this is the funny part of industry. Honest people commit frauds with the industry. Honestly, not even dishonest. That's a separate legal.
Very good.
Claim. When a claim happens, the entire modus operandi from the customer perspective is how much can I extract now? No, the trust is not trust deficit does not happen only on one side. It's not only the industry which is completely messed up. I think the way it's always put together. Tell me, and all of us are being in this business for quite some time, and as intermediaries also, have you also not gone and told the customer, "Sir, इसमें ऐसा और करते हैं और claim मिल जाएगा." ये document डालने से ना और claim बढ़ जाएगा, no? So then we are trying to extrapolate the claim beyond what was covered in the contract, like what Sanjay was mentioning. We know what the contract is as brokers, as intermediaries, as insurance companies, as customers. We know what it is. We know what will be payable. No, upfront also. Forget about we have a document which says ये covered है. There can be one or two issues, which is very rarely. And I was a claims head also. I've seen many, like if I handle thousands of files, there'll be 2 or 4 files which will have technicality required or gray areas, and how do you interpret an issue. But mostly it's within the contract very clear. Then the dispute is then, how do you push it further? So that is where the trust deficit onus is not only on the insurance company, it's on both sides. It's unfortunate, but I've said this many times. Insurance companies where even honest people commit fraud and they don't think it's a fraud. इतने साल से premium दिया क्यों नहीं मिलेगा? Arey, it's funny, huh? So I paid no claim. Now why will you not tell me the claim which I had 4 years back also? No, why will my not whole car be painted? No, I think
appreciate your point of view. Absolutely.
So now, how do you address it? Is the point. As I said, the only weakness I see in the industry and a huge weakness in all of us, and all chain online is we don't have honest, clear communication. We are afraid to do so somehow. And in terms of collecting premium, we swing the other way of trying to look at the lowest, cheapest premium and cut as much cover as possible. And a claim comes, we try to see how do we maximize the full claim, even what is not covered. And then we try to find ways to help see so kaise bada kar sakte. How do we maximize it and how do we do that? Now, when you are in this kind of position, there is a problem. The trust deficit will always be there. The complication of wordings is a smaller part of it. It is about the claim itself, how much it is and how it is. That's the first point.
Yes.
The second point, if I look at it, and this is again a funny part of the industry, let's look at the industry. What do? We collect money from many to pay to a few. We are custodian of public money. Onus on the industry is that the few we pay to should be legally as per the contract and right. Otherwise, we're not doing a duty as an insurance company. So fundamentally, the insurance company are wired to check everything with a suspicious note. Unfortunately, so because that is the onus, and it's a very, very bad experience from customer perspective.
Yes,
Now,
absolutely.
that is why honest communication, putting things together, being transparent at the very beginning stage, and being very clear about it. I think as an industry, we have to really inculcate these basics right, to be able to address the trust issue. It's on both sides, not only one side, which is to be addressed.
One more question, Mr. Devesh. The nation wants to know, when do we expect the stability of pricing?
Sorry, Dr. Saab, where do you expect?
The nation wants to know, when do we expect the stability of pricing?
No, the what of pricing? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Stability. The stability of pricing.
Stability.
Okay, so isn't it already there?
No, I do understand the industry is going through a very tough time. That is, of course, on the lighter note. And premium, in spite of you, you in the sense, the reinsurers hiking the premium, still we are, I think, significantly lower than what we used to be in 2006. But, can we expect some kind of stable pricing for the next couple of years so that at least clients are a little more comfortable, the insurers are comfortable, who are the intermediaries?
So largely, I feel that people have realized that there is a price to be paid for insurance.
Absolutely.
Because that was not there earlier. As I said, that it had ceased to be, the figure had ceased to make any difference to the psyche of a CFO. Now, at least insurance does make a difference because they feel that, yes, this is a cost that is to be budgeted at the beginning of the year. So now with this happening, commercial lines, I think, are now on a pretty even keel and they have settled down. Retail will progress as it progresses because that's a different kettle of fish altogether that you are catering to.
Yeah.
But I think these prices have stabilized to a great extent.
Okay. No, thank you. That's really heartening to know. Mr. Srinivasan, what's your view on the standardized pricing?
Anyway, the industry has taken a view and it has kind of settled down. Only thing I would like to say is, probably the industry can build some incentives for risk management, good track record, because we don't want a situation where good and bad customers are treated alike. Maybe this is something the industry can do because we also have to create a framework for risk management. It was there in the past. It was not something it was not there. One of the good positive sides of tariff regime was we did encourage people focusing on risk management. Maybe that is what I would recommend. But ultimately, like any pricing, prices are subject to some changes because you can't have a stable price depending upon the claims experience. But I think a reasonable formula which is put in place should encourage people to take care of their risks rather than just looking to insurers for claims.
I think, Dr. Dade, I'd like to add here because I think Ritesh mentioned about the banking industry looking at risk. And Mr. Srinivasan just mentioned, I was thinking about it, in the tariff regime, actually we would go for inspections and we're actually measuring, right from how far is it from the fire engine to the river, then to the dry land and the third party walls, what's the difference? And I personally done that also, and that is how we should decide what discount. We never wrote risk the way we write today. It's like the vegetable vendors, we are buying and selling, the roads are just, somebody comes and says, "Itna rupees, aap kitna kam karoge?" And then we say, okay, this is it. It's ridiculous. I think we reached a stage where I'm ashamed to say that I'm an insurer which writes commercial lines of risk, like this, without any understanding of what we are picking up. So first and foremost, I think GIC's move of standardization of rates was a good move. But then I'm not very happy with it, the way we are sticking to it now. And that is where I think Mr. Srinivasan mentioned that there has to be recognition of good risks. There has to be of loss ratios. And those tariff regimes has already shown that. It actually brought in some scientific procedure of assessing a risk. Today, if I look at, if I remove some of the traditional old insurers, as we are called, and I get a lot of youngsters who have joined the industry new and tell them, go and assess the risk. How many of them can actually go and do so today? Let's look at the brokers also and tell them, okay, go and assess the risk and tell us, what should the pricing be for the risk? How many can do? How many of us can price a risk today? Forget about what Mr. Devesh and his and GIC charges. How many of us can independently price the risk today? Do we have the skill set of the country as an insurer? We are losing. I think very few would have it now. It has become like buying and selling at a vegetable street side vending. That is how we are doing business. Right? It's a shame. And that's why that's my humble request to Mr. Srinivasan using I think panel discussion is, and he is a veteran and one of the most recognized international figures along. And I think Mr. Srinivasan now breathing in, and seriously, Mr. Devesh, I think the kind of legend that you are in your own way. If we don't correct this now, take it away from being a vegetable vendor buying and selling insurance, with the least of efforts made, we are killing an entire generation of learning. And I'll be shocked to see how the industry behaves 10 years from now on commercial lines of business. So this is the way it is, progressing on that. So I thought I could not resist myself, put it on.
Yeah. So I'll ask this question to Anamika, and this is the second last question before we go to the last question in the interest of time. Anamika, where do you see the FDI cap if it becomes 74? How do you think the industry will behave, and what is going to be the effect on the industry?
Well, I don't have much to say. You should ask the unicorns about it. But what I can say is the industry will behave as it is. It has not changed in the last 20 years. It won't change, right? Just because FDI is going up. If you look at the recent valuations, they are mind-boggling. We never thought this kind of valuations will come up. And to add that discipline, of course, Tapan and all have all their views. My humble view to Devesh would be begin with a deductible. If I can talk about loss prevention, if somebody is going to really maintain their, they should then be willing to take, okay, मेरा तो loss ही नहीं होगा ना, तो फिर मैं deductible क्यों नहीं लूँ? That nobody is willing to take. And again, we have now machine learning, we have AI, because we have started using a lot of tools which translate images into conversion into what the risk probability could be. So times have changed. Let's go with time, but do this. Now, how is it related to FDI? When FDI comes in, a lot of technology also comes in, and they bring in some expertise. Like someone spoke about Japan. We deal with Japanese quite a bit, and they have a different way of looking at things. For them, when the claim has occurred, you just pay it, no questions asked. Recently, we are struggling with a very big claim, and they said, why have you not paid? So if these things come, maybe the way we look at business will probably take a kind of a shift, but will there be a big change? I don't know. Okay. Because we are still Indians, and we believe in a lot of things. We trust each. Somebody said about trust. I must say, since this is the second last question, just to air my views, I think I trust my customers completely. I have no doubt. I never consider a customer is a so-called whatever name you want to give him. It is the way we have drafted such complicated wordings that is what builds the mistrust. because the customer says, "पता नहीं इसमें क्या लिखा है, मुझे मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा." When they put 10 rupees in the bank, they know it is there and they can withdraw. If they have given us a premium, is anybody, including me, very sure मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा? That milega ki nahi milega is a phrase, as Tapan says, in education. I think we're on the job. I think I'm very positive that we are moving in the right direction. And I wish my children take up this profession. One has already, and the other one is also very excited to take up. And I'm sure we will see a very good light within a few years from now. Things have started taking a different turn. There will be trust built in. The more claims we pay, the more publicity we make of the claims we pay. I think somewhere we as an industry are shy of saying, I have paid 1 lakh claims. I have paid this claim. Each one, I think we should start talking about the number of claims that we are paying. It's not that people do not know. And FDI is a welcome move. I think broking it may be 100% now. So insurance company, let it come. But Atmanirbhar फिर कैसे होगा? आत्मनिर्भर की कहानी अगर सुनानी है तो फिर कैसे होगा?
Yeah.
With this, I leave it here.
Before I go to the last question, in the interest of time, so there are a lot of, we brokers and insurers, we are bringing a lot of synergy for the clients. We are seeing that the client is benefited, and we are all working for a customer's delight, to own that customer, to come so that that customer comes as a renewal to us. The customer comes to us as a kind of, it's a delight of the customer to deal with us. So to do that, I personally believe, and this is my personal view, that you should be giving constant feedback to the brokers or the intermediaries, and you as an insurer or a reinsurer, or we as brokers or other intermediaries should be giving the kind of feedback to the industry and the insurance companies that, look, this is where I think we need to improve, or this is where we need to do better things. I think this conversation will help in creating a future which is going to be very, very delighted for all of us. So with that in mind, how can brokers and insurers collaborate to give the best customer service and the customer delight? And here I'm opening this question and throwing it to the open forum, where all of you would, I would request your views so that we all grow in a profitable win-win situation for the future. Please go ahead.
Doctor, we have been backbenchers, bhaiya. Till you call us, we don't stand up to answer. Remember, front bench student.
Sorry, I wanted to make this as an open session to have your honest view. Let me start with Mr. Tapan Singhal then.
You speak and you get no. Okay. So my belief, again, like I was talking about, insurance is a beautiful industry to be in. So much to do, so diversity, the kind of risk that we look at, the kind of cover that we provide, the kind of protection we provide, and when things go wrong, the way we get economy into back into shape, the amount of money that we generate, even the government uses for infrastructure. I think we contribute a lot to the country. I think the problem is,
as an intermediary
the problem is we don't respect ourselves, and we don't know how we do that. The collaboration occurs when we say, okay, this is a problem. Let's say to begin with, under insurance is the problem. It's not right. So do we agree today that, let's say, as insurance companies, as an intermediary, that we'll actually do full insurance cover? And at least these 3-4 minimum risks, with the customer actually requiring things go wrong, based on data and statistics, which luckily IIB is there now, and GIC is supporting us so much. Can we put it together and say, okay, this is what we shall do minimum? Can we set up minimum standards to begin with, before we talk of the big stuff coming in? We, at least in the root level itself, we have so much problem right now, Doctor. Yeah. That is my issue. Let's address the root levels. Under insurance is a huge issue. Let's look at the covers that is there, even BI and all the simple covers should be there. Our burglary, I've seen a simple burglary covered people at times are not having it. So when I look at a lot of, and I do the analysis for my portfolio, and when I go through it, I get very, very frustrated because 100% of the portfolio is not the way it should be. So can we, from my side, if I would just say one thing, can we sit together as brokers and insurance companies and decide this is a minimum standard that we shall do? Involve GIC, involve IIB. Minimum. But इससे कम नहीं करेंगे हम. Can we do that? Like GIC took a bold step and saying this is the minimum that I want to do. Let's start with the minimum first, which itself is huge. Before really getting some complications of what do we do next. So that's the only point I'd like to make here.
Yeah, great. Any further views from my colleagues here on this panel?
I think this is also an issue in terms of evolving of a role.
Yes.
Of course, I think as brokers and insurers, I mean, we need to work together because we are all serving a common customer. But at the end of the day, I think there does need to be a role evolution, and that role evolution needs to be, is it only about price discovery?
No, not at all.
Or is it about going out and giving a solution to the customer for what he requires?
Absolutely.
And probably I think, and this is all a stage of evolution. We all face competition. A lot of times, I mean, Tapan very, very clearly alluded to the fact that a lot of times the discussion is only about the price. And I think we very, very clearly need to move from a discussion being only about a price discovery, because a price discovery, I mean, we need to be conscious of the fact that we are talking in terms of risk management. We're talking in terms of risk mitigation, and I mean, price as a role, but I mean, the fact is, and let's accept it that I mean, if you pay peanuts, I mean, I don't want to complete the whole thing. I mean, that's what you get. Okay, and at the end of the day, we've seen this. I mean, we've seen time and again, reinsurers also come in and allude to this fact.
Yes.
That if you are going to talk in terms of only price as a factor, you will get broken coverages, you will get inadequate coverages. I mean, which is there. So to my mind, I think, I mean, I don't think there is any doubt in the fact that if we are serving a common customer, we need to be on the same side. I mean, though. As a broking fraternity, and on a lighter note, you say you represent the customer. But at the end of the day, if we need to serve a customer, you also need to represent us. And probably, I mean, if someone takes that role very, very seriously, that you are only representing the customer, then, I mean, potentially there could be an issue. Because at the end of the day, I think
is always not the best.
three, I mean, this is a triangle. I mean, and then all three, it needs to be a win-win-win. And if any of the three lose out, eventually the insurance fraternity at a larger self or risk management from an insured perspective is a loser.
Very well said.
So I think just one point from my side before the others completed. Insurance, neurosciences have said insurance is the most difficult buy in customers. So, very clearly, the verdict is out. It is the most difficult, product a person will buy. Now the question is, how do we inculcate this habit in the absence of what Srinivasan Sahib has said, in the absence of financial literacy, in our country. So it's a very difficult thing to do. So I think on the commercial side, I think we have to work together, in terms of, what has already been said, even on the, I think what is coming out very clearly, we have to identify areas where there is natural attachment, and that reference to the bankers insisting that there is a policy versus not. Even we may struggle all the way, going and selling it to people and trying to convince them. But we need to find natural ways of, avenues of, getting in, not chipkana as they call it, but natural ways where they insist. Something like property tax insisting on home insurance. And these can, with Aadhaar and all these technology things. We need to find these gaps and keep filling it. We need to identify them. Customers, not like somebody said, he looks at the portfolio, finds a lot of inadequate coverage. All that needs to be checked by us, and that's where we need to find common standards of checking what's the minimum. And as far as risk management is concerned, again, we could involve, no broker will ever insure a stock, go down in a flat prone area where, the stock is not kept at least 1 feet above the ground. Simple measures which we all agree to as boards to start with. So no, nothing. So or let's take an occupancy which is giving us losses. But as insurance fund holders, we decide that these bad risks, a simple thing which needs to can eliminate built-in sustainable prices. It's like immobilizers in motor cars. Brought down the theft risk considerably. So we can go occupancy by occupancy and do that strongly before we come to account-based bad and good risk and all of that. That's some time away. But I'm saying that there are simple measures we could agree to and say we will stick. No stock will be insured if they're not kept 1 feet above. One we adhere to these small, things. I think, a lot of, development will, self-governance, as someone said, needs to start. Rather than insisting the IRDA starts, regulating, or we have someone else, put a minimum kind of thing. That's my point.
Any further views? How do we?
Yeah. See, Doctor, I think collaboration is there. Now, how do we enhance this collaboration? I
Yeah.
will take one leap forward from Sanjay, that I think it is now time has come when brokers would need to understand the risk better and represent it better. Cost should come later. I think maybe a shift is required to give the correct cover to the correct customer so that, the trust element develops. And
Yes.
price, of course, is an important factor, but it can come a little later. I think that's how we'll collaborate
Very
beautifully.
well said, Anamika. Very well.
Uh, that is what.
So,
Just
fellow
a few
colleagues,
things.
I'm sure
Yeah.
they will absorb this very well.
Mhm.
Sandeep,
Yes,
can I
Mr.
just, yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Transparency, education, giving solutions to the customer for his real needs, and finally, proper claim settlement. I think these are 4 things where insurers and brokers will have to be together. And we should all remember that ultimately service to the customer is the focus of everyone in the industry.
Absolutely. No, to the point. Super. Thank you. Mr. Devesh.
Dr. Saab, actually, my thoughts just go to what Tapan Saab had said earlier about the younger generation. I mean, 10 years, 15 years down the line, down the road, what do we leave for them? Because in these years that they have joined the industry and grown to, let's say, the middle management level or wherever, they have just seen price as being the only differentiating factor between, one quote and the other. So the learning curve has not taken off at all. It is just where it was because price is the only differentiator as of today. But as we go forward, I think, sir, as broking houses also, you should invest more in, being a complete end-to-end value solution to your client. Like a claim, how do you advise them? I mean, what are the intricacies that are there? At the time of taking the policy, of course, you have to suggest to them that this is something that you should look at. You may take it, you may not take it, that is your judgment, but this is something that you should look at. Then in the insurance parlance, the modeling that we have, I mean, I have seen brokers in London invest an enormous amount of money in modeling and in having actuaries on the panels and sorts. Where are we today vis-a-vis all the other things that these broking houses have? So we have a long way to go, sir. The journey is long, truly so. But then, coming back to what Tapan Saab said, that we have to leave that legacy behind, and for that we have to start preparing now and make our investments now.
No, wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Devesh. And I think I will thank each and every panelist here. It's been a wonderful interaction. We have exceeded our time, but believe me, if given a choice, I would exceed by 1 more hour. I mean, that's the kind of level of interesting conversation we all had. Thank you all for your frank opinion. And I'm sure every of our broker colleague here is going to take it very positively and try and inculcate those practice in their own business. And I think let us hope for a best future together. So I would like to say one more time, let us collaborate to co-create this industry. Let us be the front runners of this industry, and let us have these kind of feedback sessions regularly instead of meeting just once in a year, maybe once in a quarter. We can actually discuss the kind of way to look forward, and I think education amongst us will take things forward in a much positive manner. So I will thank each and every panelist for your valuable time and the inputs for IBI. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you.